The agenda is adopted. I would like to warmly welcome the high-level representatives present in the Security Council chamber. Your presence today underscores the importance of the subject matter under discussion. In accordance with the Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of Armenia, Australia, Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Bulgaria, Canada, Cuba, Djibouti, Egypt, Iceland, India, Indonesia, Iraq, Ireland, the Islamic Republic of Iran, Israel, Japan, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Lebanon, Lithuania, Malaysia, Maldives, Malta, Mauritania, Mexico, the federal states of Micronesia, Morocco, Namibia, the Kingdom of Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Oman, Philippines, Poland, Portugal, Qatar, the Republic of Korea, Romania, Saudi Arabia, Slovenia, South Africa, Spain, Sri Lanka, Switzerland, the Syrian Arab Republic, Thailand, Timor-Leste, Tunisia, Turkey, Uganda, the United Arab Emirates, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Vietnam, and Yemen to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. In accordance with the Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the following briefers to participate in this meeting. Mr. Khaled Khayari, Assistant Secretary General, Departments of Political and Peace Building Affairs and Peace Operations, and Mr. Tony Blair, Member of the Executive Board of the Board of Peace. It is so decided. In accordance with the Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I also invite the following to participate in this meeting. His Excellency Mr. Ahmed Abul Ghait, Secretary General of the League of Arab States, His Excellency Mr. Stavros Lambrinidis, Head of Delegation of the European Union to the United Nations, His Excellency Mr. Omar Hadi, Vice Chair of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People, and His Excellency Mr. Paul Beresford Hill, Permanent Observer of the Sovereign Order of Malta to the United Nations. It is so decided. I propose that the Council invite the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Expatriates of the Observer State of Palestine to participate in the meeting in accordance with the Provisional Rules of Procedure and the previous practice in this regard. There being no objection, it is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. I now give the floor to Mr. Khaled Khayari.
Mr. President, members of the Security Council, I'm briefing you today at a moment of profound regional tension and instability, which is impacting the lives and livelihoods of hundreds of millions across the region and beyond. The tension and hostilities that have upended the Middle East over the past weeks have shifted attention from the situation in the occupied Palestinian territory. Away from the spotlight, the situation in Gaza and West Bank, including East Jerusalem, is steadily worsening. The population in Gaza faces ongoing and deadly Israeli strikes and dire humanitarian conditions, while in the West Bank, violence, including rampant settler violence, displacement, and accelerating settlement activity are threatening entire communities and further eroding the prospects for a political process that will resolve the conflict on the basis of a viable two-state solution. Mr. President, in Gaza, the ceasefire is increasingly fragile as Israeli strikes and armed activities by Hamas and other groups continue. While diplomatic efforts are ongoing with the goal of consolidating the ceasefire and implementing phase 2 of the comprehensive plan endorsed by United Nations Security Council in Resolution 2803, talks on the disarmament of Hamas and other armed groups have thus far not resulted in an agreement, raising concerns over the potential return to widespread hostilities. Civilians continue to bear the brunt of the ongoing violence. According to the Ministry of Health in Gaza, since the ceasefire began, approximately 800 Palestinians, including more than 200 children and 7 humanitarian personnel, have been killed as a result of Israeli strikes, shelling, and gunfire. The Israel Defense Forces has stated that its strikes have targeted Hamas militants and facilities. Meanwhile, the humanitarian needs on the ground remain overwhelming. Some 1.8 million people, nearly the entire population of Gaza, are displaced and living in IDP camps and are dependent on aid amid ongoing hostilities, devastated infrastructure, and rising public health risks. While some improvements in access and aid delivery have been observed in recent weeks, unpredictable access, limited operational crossings, and restrictions on critical humanitarian items termed dual-use items by Israel continue to constrain UN response. Food security remains a challenge, while essential services, particularly water, sanitation, and health, are again on the brink of collapse. Plans must be advanced urgently, not only for the humanitarian aid, but also for early recovery and reconstruction. On 20 April, the United Nations and the European Union released the final Gaza Rapid Damage and Needs Assessment conducted jointly with the World Bank. According to the assessment, recovery and reconstruction needs in Gaza are estimated at $71.4 billion over the next decade, including $26.3 billion required in the first 18 months to restore essential services, rebuild critical infrastructure, and support economic recovery. To begin addressing the staggering needs across the OPT, the United Nations has recently launched the Horizon Fund, co-chaired by Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa and Deputy Special Coordinator Ramiz Al-Akbarov. This fund will enable the United Nations to implement early recovery planning across the entire OPT, in line with United Nations resolutions and international law. We deeply appreciate member states' contributions to the fund to date. In order to advance recovery, the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza must be allowed to fulfill its governance and administrative roles as outlined in the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2803 in coordination with the Palestinian Authority, while the other elements of the comprehensive plan are implemented in full. These include the disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza, Israeli withdrawal from the Strip, and the deployment of the International Stabilization Force. Mr. President, turning to the West Bank between 14 March and 16 April, Israeli Authority advanced plans for 1,080 housing units in the West Bank, including 680 in several settlements in Area C, and planned for 400 housing units in East Jerusalem. On 25th of March, the Israeli cabinet approved 34 settlements across Area C. These include new settlements, regularization of existing outposts and neighborhoods of existing settlements, representing the most extensive such approval to date in a single cabinet decision. During the reporting period, 21 Palestinians, including 6 children, were killed by Israeli forces or settlers in West Bank, and 310, including 45 children, were injured. According to Israeli sources, 1 Israeli was killed and 11 injured, including 1 woman, in Palestinian attacks against Israelis. The frequency and severity of settler attacks continue to increase. Entire Palestinian communities now routinely facing lethal violence, vandalism, and harassment, often in the presence of Israeli soldiers or with their participation. I note of recent expression of concern by some Israeli officials regarding settler violence and call on the authorities to take immediate action to stop the violence. The situation in northern West Bank refugee camps remains alarming. Israeli military operations and access restrictions have led to the prolonged displacement of more than 33,000 residents from Jenin, Tulkarem, and Nur Shams refugee camps. These camps remain largely empty, marking the largest and longest displacement crisis in the West Bank in decades. Mr. President, economic conditions across the West Bank also continue to deteriorate. Rising costs, limited access to employment, and movement restrictions are undermining livelihoods and increasing reliance on humanitarian assistance. The Palestinian Authority faces an existential fiscal crisis that threatens the institutional foundations of a future independent Palestinian state. 9 months of withheld clearance revenues, public debt exceeding $14 billion, and mounting pressures on correspondent banking arrangements leave the Palestinian Authority without the fiscal tools required to sustain itself. Mr. President, on a positive note, on 25th of April, Palestinians seized an important opportunity to exercise their democratic rights by participating in local elections in most of the West Bank and in Deir el-Balah in the Gaza Strip. The United Nations commends the Palestinian Central Elections Commission for its credible administration of the electoral process, given the significant challenges present in the West Bank and the extraordinarily difficult conditions prevailing in Gaza. The United Nations remains committed to supporting and strengthening Palestinian institutions and promoting democratic governance. Mr. President, turning to the region, the United Nations welcomes the 3-week extension of the cessation of hostilities between Israel and Lebanon and the ongoing talks facilitated by the United States. We remain ready to support these efforts and continue to urge the full implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701 toward a permanent ceasefire and long-term solution to the conflict. On the ground, the situation remains extremely fragile amid ongoing violence, with continued strikes by Hezbollah and Israel, violations of Lebanon's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and the possession of weapons outside of Lebanese state authority. We urge all actors to exercise maximum restraint, fully respect the cessation of hostilities, and to comply with their obligations under international law, including international humanitarian law, at all times. There is no military solution to this conflict. Diplomacy is the path towards sustainable peace. 6 peacekeepers, 4 Indonesians, and 2 French, serving with the interim force of Lebanon, have been killed since the 2nd of March, with several more injured. We reiterate our strong condemnation of all attacks on peacekeepers and extend our deepest condolences to their family and friends, as well as to the governments and people of Indonesia and France. Attacks on peacekeepers are unacceptable and must be promptly investigated so that those responsible must be held accountable. The safety and security of United Nations personnel and the inviolability of United Nations property must be respected by all. On the Golan, the Israel Defense Forces remained on the Bravo side and currently maintain 11 positions, 8 in the area of separation and 3 in area of limitation in the vicinity of the Bravo line. The IDF continues to carry out operations on the Bravo side, including night search operations in villages and in some cases detaining civilians. Some of the civilians were released following interrogation by the Israeli Defense Forces, while others remain in detention in Israel. Mr. President, resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains central to achieving durable peace in the region, as it continues to fuel instability across the Middle East. The meetings of 20 April of the Global Alliance for the Implementation of the Two-State Solution and the Ad hoc Liaison Committee underscored the ongoing commitment of the international community to preserving what has been built over the past decades, identifying and reversing the deeply destructive current trends on the ground, and finding ways to translate political will into concrete policy steps on the ground, backed by financial commitments. Despite the current challenges, and as also emphasized in the Global Alliance and ASLC meetings, there is no alternative to a political solution. A political framework that clearly advances the parties toward an end to the occupation and the achievement of a viable two-state solution is essential both to sustainably addressing the urgent needs on the ground and to achieving a just and lasting peace. The United Nations remains committed to supporting all efforts toward this goal. Thank you.
I thank Mr. Khayari for his briefing. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Espen Barth Eide, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Norway and representative of the Ad hoc Liaison Committee.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank the Security Council and its presidency, the Kingdom of Bahrain, for allowing me to brief the Council today in my capacity as the chair of the Ad hoc Liaison Committee. And I particularly thank His Excellency Dr. Abdulatif bin Rashid Al Zayyan for chairing this meeting and inviting me. Ever since the HALC was established in 1993, the committee has brought together the parties to the conflict, the key donor countries, and the international organizations with expertise in Palestinian economy. Its ultimate aim is to achieve self-determination for the Palestinian people within a two-state solution with security and dignity for Israelis and Palestinians alike. The HALC met again on Monday, 20th April, last week. I believe that this meeting led to some positive developments, which I'm very pleased to share with this Council. President, Resolution 2803, adopted by this Council on the 18th of November 2025, endorsed President Trump's 20-point peace plan to end the Gaza conflict and create a credible pathway to Palestinian statehood. The peace plan offered new dynamics. The ceasefire in Gaza significantly reduced civilian casualties after years of suffering. Living and deceased hostages were finally returned home to Israel. The resolution also authorized new transitional institutional architecture. It is vital that we do not lose this important momentum. Last week, the HALC brought together key stakeholders, first and foremost Palestine, represented by their Prime Minister, His Excellency Mohammed Mustafa, but also the Board of Peace as a special guest for an important conversation in Brussels. The meeting was co-hosted with the European Union's High Representative for Foreign and Security Policy, Ms. Kaja Kallas. On our agenda was the question of how to implement the 20-point plan and how to improve the situation on the ground in Palestine. One objective of last week's meeting was to establish a clear link between the new temporary structures established under Resolution 2803 and the pre-existing already established structures. This in turn should help consolidate alignment around unified coordination mechanisms. This is essential in order to speed up implementation on the ground, to mobilize donors for early recovery in Gaza, which is so urgently needed, and also to safeguard the economy in the West Bank. President, Resolution 2803 welcomed the establishment of the Board of Peace in Gaza. While some states have joined the Board of Peace, other states, like my own, have chosen not to join, Still, we are convinced that we need to work together to implement this critical resolution that we all support. I would like to commend the United States for their essential role in reaching the ceasefire last October. Continued strong US engagement is key in order to move forward. As highlighted in the HALC meeting last week, Hamas's weapons must be decommissioned. This is essential for the plan to work. But this again must happen in a context. The mediators' efforts must be supported so that full recovery and the aspirations of the Palestinians can move forward. Coordinated donor support is critical to humanitarian relief, recovery, and reconstruction in Gaza. The HALC aims to consolidate such efforts and to gather all stakeholders in the same room in order to pursue these common goals. The dedicated liaison committee between the PA, the Palestinian Authority, and the Board of Peace institutions, and the meeting between the Palestinian Prime Minister and the Board of Peace High Representative for Gaza held in the margins of HALC are important examples of the coordination urgently needed. The rapid damage and needs assessment that was already referred to was undertaken by the World Bank, the UN, and the European Union together, and published on the day of the HALC meeting. This document constitutes an important basis for recovery and reconstruction efforts. In line with the report and Palestinian plans, donors should scale up assistance through the World Bank instruments, the UN Multi-Donor Trust Fund, Horizon, and other mechanisms for humanitarian support. President, civilians in Palestine, both in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank, continue to suffer. The Palestinian economy remains severely constrained, notably by Israeli access and movement restrictions, fiscal challenges, limited Palestinian control over natural resources, and a weakened private sector. There is deep concern among HALC members about growing risks of systemic collapse of the Palestinian institutions and their economy, with ensuing risk to basic public service provision and potential public security implications. Palestinian hospitals, schools, courts, police may stop functioning. Banks may be at risk. This situation is also jeopardizing the pathway to Palestinian self-determination and independent statehood, long-standing and legitimate rights of the Palestinian people. While improving economic prospects will require long-term structural change and a comprehensive political solution, it will be crucial in the short term to scale up immediate financial support to the Palestinian institutions built over decades with donor support. At our meeting last week, members of the HALC acknowledged the Palestinian Authority's progress in advancing important reforms under challenging circumstances. They encouraged continued efforts on this path. President, Resolution 2803 was an innovative resolution that established new transitional structures in Gaza. It has taken some time to integrate these new structures with the pre-existing structures for assistance and development. At the HALC meeting, we came a long way in committing donors to a coherent, coordinated, and consolidated effort toward our shared objective of improving conditions on the ground. However, further action is required. As chair of the HALC, I call on Hamas to decommission its weapons without delay. The 20-point plan hinges on this essential piece. It must be a sequential process with steps including guarantees, monitoring mechanisms, and overarching security architecture and confidence-building measures. I call on the government of Palestine to continue its reform efforts, including to prepare for its resumption of governance in Gaza in line with the 20-point plan and the Security Council Resolution 2803. I call on the government of Israel to lift restrictions on access and movement, to ensure continued flow and clearance revenues in full, to lift the cap on repatriation of physical shekels, and secure the corresponding banking relations, to reverse expansion of settlements, address settler violence, and hold perpetrators accountable. Israel must furthermore allow for the unimpeded delivery of sustained distribution of humanitarian aid at scale into aid throughout Gaza in accordance with international humanitarian law. As for the international community, it should increase assistance at scale and in a timely fashion to the Palestinian people, including budget support and direct assistance to strengthen the Palestinian Authority and enable its reform efforts under a critical moment in time. All parties and UN member states should support implementation of the 20-point peace plan and resolution 20